So my point of view, there were a few points I made. One of them is that AI even today is significantly underhyped, but AI itself is going to be like electricity. So it doesn't make sense having an AI strategy. It makes having sense having a strategy, how it is impacted by AI, because you don't go around saying I'm better than the other company because I have access to electricity. And AI itself will be a commodity, but a combination of your data, but more important, your company, your structure, and your reimagining the company will be very important. Second is a lot of people are talking, rightfully so, about the efficiency and the effectiveness that AI might bring to marketing, but it also will change the rules of the game. It will create completely new models of business and will completely new competitors, which I call existential opportunities and existential risks. And not enough people are focusing about that. And the other one is that in many ways, we must think about AI not just as agentic or physical, but think about it as an alien form that we're working with. So it's an extended, it's not human, but it's sort of AI. And the future is about how you basically combine those two. And then we talked about A, B, C, D, E, and F of brands, which is I showed how audiences would change, how brands would require an emphasis on things like trust and storytelling and true distinctiveness in this modern world. We talked about both content creation, we talked about data, and then obviously, and very importantly, how organizations are going to have to be different, how leadership is going to be different in an AI age. And then F was finance, which is how the measurements will be different too. Because when we went from the analog to the digital world, the measurements also changed. And as we go into the AI world, we can't use the analog and digital measurements. They're different types of measurement. So people found that very, very useful. And then I provided people with some homework for them to do. One is imagine if they started their company today, what would it look like with modern AI, modern distributed work? And if it looks very, very different, then think about what you are currently doing. Because a lot of people are trying to take their current company and evolve it. And I think this is revolutionary. You also have to stop thinking with a blank sheet of paper. So people sort of appreciated that. I recommended Shiv Singh's book, which is Marketing AI for Dummies. I recommended Ethan Mollick's book, which is called Co-Intelligence. And I gave everybody a copy of my new book, which is called Rethinking Work, as ways to think about AI.
So, Rashad, from a practical standpoint, or a more kind of next year or two, in terms of the ad tech companies that are here, the publishers that are here, the ad agencies are here, what can we expect in terms of the initial impact of AI? Of course, AI has been around for the platforms for some time, but
So I think there are going to be these three very big things. The first one is we're going to say almost every single thing. Companies are going to have to decide on what two or three things they can focus because they can use AI on everything. And using AI on everything means they won't have the resources and they won't do it particularly well. But I expect that companies are going to use AI, one, to find more cost-effective ways to get insights and to generate content. Uh, and that is whether it's generative AI or using agentic AI to do like focus groups and a whole bunch of other things. So that's one big thing. The second is I think what companies will also start doing is start thinking about how many employees they need and what type of employees. So this is going to be also about retraining and reorganizing the company. Those are all going to be done in the next couple of years because I don't think most companies are going to be able to get the efficiency and the effectiveness without actually also changing the way they think about talent and the way they organize the company. So that's one set. That I'm thinking is pretty clear. The other one that I do believe is going to happen is most companies are going to find that their biggest opportunities and threats come from outside the way they define their category. That this is a form of innovation that cuts across categories, that significantly changes price economics and changes competitive models. So for instance, if you're in media mix modeling, there are new companies starting with AI as a base of media mix modeling versus adding AI to current media mix modeling. So you're going to see a lot of new competitors as well as new opportunities, is what I call existential risk. So there's obviously going to be efficiency and effectiveness, but that's going to require, in addition, how you think about your organization and your measures. But then you're also going to have existential risk, which is potentially, is your company going to be reinvented and disintermediated? So I was recently at Google and in discussion, And it's very clear that most companies of that type believe that it's very likely that there'll be multiple companies in the next 2 years with over $1 billion of revenue. I'm not taking $1 billion of market cap, which can be a hype thing, but $1 billion of revenue with less than 100 employees. So multiple companies with 100 employees with $1 billion of revenue. And when today in our space, like in the agency space, it's about 150,000. In the US, it's about $150,000 per person. So to have $1 billion of revenue, you need 6,000 people.
Speaking of the workplace, you have a new book.
Yes.
So tell us what's going on with the book, some things you'd like to share about how the workplace
Sure.
is changing.
So my new book, which comes out on Feb 4th, and I gave you a copy because I've got some advanced ones, is called Rethinking Work. And basically what it is it's under the fundamental belief that work will change more between 2020 and 2030, which we're halfway through, than it has in the previous 50 years. And there are 5 driving forces. One is societal changes, aging populations, declining populations, multiple generations at work, different mindsets happens to be one, rise of the individual. The second is what I call technology, and that is AI, blockchain, XR will change work. Third is the rise of marketplaces, which is what people don't realize is today you can plug and play into different kinds of marketplaces, Amazon Web Services, OpenAI, Shopify, Etsy. The rise of gig work, more people, there'll be as many people doing gig, side hustles, and freelance work next year in the US as will be doing full-time jobs. Okay. And then the final one is the impact of COVID. But the impact of COVID is not as much on where you work, but what you think about work and what you think about your boss. So I identify 5 driving factors. And anybody who's read it says, okay, this isn't just about COVID. I said, COVID is a sideshow to what's actually happening in the future of work. And then I come up with 4 things that companies are already doing: new types of employees, machine-human coexistence, new type of leaders, and then unbundling the office. I believe in in-person interaction, but it doesn't all have to be done in an office. You don't have to do it 4 or 5 days a week. And then the last 5 chapters are to prepare for 2030. How to rethink your strategy, to rethink your organizational design, rethink your training, and rethink your financials. And people who have read the book find it very useful. It's written in very good language. It isn't a screed. It says here are ways to think about it in frameworks. It gives examples, but it doesn't say here is the answer. It just says, if you're aware of this and you try these kind of approaches, you will come up with an answer for your organization, your culture, your industry better than I can. I don't know what that is. But everybody who's read that and followed it basically says, oh my God, I've never thought about this. So the good news is the book isn't out yet, and I've already sold 10,000 copies. Okay, which is kind of interesting because people have heard about it. I gave early copies to people, and their whole stuff is like, this is like complete, because it makes you think differently, but it isn't scary. It just says, hey, by the way, think like this. Here's what you can do. And I'm not providing you an answer. So this isn't like going back to the office is bad or being 100% remote is bad. I'm saying none of that. I'm saying focusing on where somebody works is the least important thing in the future of work. And then I show why.
Rishad, tell us again the title of the book and where it can be bought.
So it's called Rethinking Work. It's available for pre-order anywhere, and it'll be in bookstores Feb 4th of 2025.